Hello my friends, today we're learning Baba Basra Daf Kuf Chof Zayin. We're going to start Kuf Chof and Beis, 4 lines up, Omar of Ami. So we're going to say now 5 different dinim that apply about the tumtum. A tumtum is a human who doesn't have female features and doesn't have masculine features. It's covered and we don't know what's underneath the covered part. So says Rav Ami, Omar Rav Ami, tumtum shenikra, that the covered part got torn off. Now we see that he has masculine male features. Ein noitel b'shnayim, even though they the firstborn, he doesn't get din bechora. The Omar Krok of the pasuk, v'oyo ben bechor lasnil. When it's about the din bechor, it says v'oyo ben bechor lasnil. So we learn actually ben mishas avoyo. Who gets double only if he's a son, only if he's a male from when he's born. And this human who was born, when he was born, we don't know if he was a boy or a girl. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Oma, another din about tumtum. Af eino nidon ke ben soyer mora. There's a din, ben soyer mora, who does a few things in a certain age, he gets punished. So this tumtum, even though that we find out that he's masculine at the end, we don't consider him ben soyer mora. Why not? Omar krok le ish ben soyer mora. Actually, ben mishas avaya, only if he's a boy from when he's born. And here, when he was born, we didn't know. Something more kuf chof zayin or medalef, a third din. Amei mo'amar af eino mimayet chelek bechora. Shenemar v'yoldo lo ibonim. Actually, ben b'shas leida. So this din means that normally, when you have, let's say, 3 brothers, a Bechor and 2 simple brothers who are not Bechor, and there's 9 parts to the Yerusha. So you give the Bechor double, so each Pashut, let's split it into 4 portions. It's 9 to split, let me just see the calculation. Yeah, if it would be normal brothers, a Bechor would get 4.5, and then there's left another 4.5 split between the 2 other brothers. But because this one of these simple brothers is a tumtum, even though afterwards we found out that he's a boy and not a girl, and it says in the Torah, that they need to be bonim from Shas later. So in such a case, the Bechor looks, when we give the Bechor his extra part, we look at it as there's only 2 brothers. The Bechor takes, he splits 9 into 3, and the Bechor takes 6, and the other 3 that's left, that's split between the other 2 brothers, even though there's a tumtum and now he's a boy, so he does get his chelek, but because we only were memayitim from Bechorah, from the Pashut he does get, but when we calculate the Bechorah, we calculate as if he doesn't exist. Rav Shizbi Omar, another din number 3, Omar, af eino nimel l'shmoina, if his bris, he was born like a tumtum, and before he was 8 days, he was nikra, and we see he's a male, and his 8th day comes on Shabbos, so we don't do a bris on Shabbos. And from there we learn that b'yom hashmini even on Shabbos, that's dafka if yoldo zocho achye zocho b'shas leida. Rav Sharvi Omar 15 af ein imoy tmei leida. So let's explain a second. There's a din that when a woman has a baby, so if it's a boy, she's tome, I think 7 days. If it's a girl, 2 weeks. And if she sees blood afterwards, we don't say it's nida. No, there's a certain amount of time that that yoledes stays tall. So we're saying over here that if a woman has a tumtum, even though afterwards we found out the zochel, there's no din to sit Shiva Tmeim and not 14 Tmeim, as if she never had a baby. And if she has blood, so she sits like a niddah, but nothing to do with having a baby. So let's see it inside. Rav Shabri Omar, af ein imoy mitmei leido, the Omar kro isho ki tazriya ve'oldo zocha, v'toma shivas yomim, ad she'tei zocha mishas leido. And this is no zocha, and by the nekeva also it says isho ki tazriya ve'oldo nekeva, and she's not a nekeva. Basically, we have a kasha on this, amapeles, tumtum, vadroigenus. So someone who has a baby who was born dead, and it's a tumtum or androgynous means that it has both simonim, also the male and also the female. Teisha blazochol and nekeva. So she sits, because we are Sophic, we don't know what she is. She sits not only 7 days, 14 days. So the Gemara Tiyufta, the Rav Sharvia Tiyufta of Sharvia said that the woman doesn't have to sit whatsoever. Yemei Tuma, and here we can see that she does say sit Yemei Tuma. So we have a kash on Rav Shravia. Says the Gemara, Leima Tiavet Yufta the Rav Shizvi. The Chayra on Rav Shizvi is also a kash because Rav Shizvi said Isha Ketazriya V'Yodo Zocho and V'Yoyim Hashmin Yimoy, and we might a tumtum. So that means the Chayra you don't have also Dinei Tuma, and here it says that there is a Dinei Tuma. So the Gemara, no, Tona the Brisa Sipuke Mesapkele. He has a suffix. He doesn't know if it's a male or female with tumtum, and therefore l'chumra, and therefore we give him also dinei chumra of a male and also of a female, and that's why she has to sit not only 7 days, 14 days, and it also fits in with what Rav Shizvi said, because l'chumra, since we don't know if this is considered, we don't know if we darshan this drosha or not of that it's dafka if he was born as Zocha, and therefore we can't do a bris on Shabbos because it's Chil Shabbos. The only reason why we do a bris on Shabbos because there's special Gzeres HaKosov, but this Gzeres HaKosov we don't know if we say it about Tum Tum. So the Gemara Yochi, if so, that the Bride says Midin Sofek Teishav Lazocho and Kevo and Nida Miboile. Why did it say in the Bride that she sits also for Zocha, also in a Keva? But once that Sofek of Zocha and a Keva, once the 14 days are passed, even if she sees blood, we don't assume that it's a Nida because she had a Leda, and a woman who had a baby doesn't sit Nida for 40 days. So, if it's a Sofek, maybe Alatzata it's no Zocha and no Nekeva, she should have a Din Nida, and it doesn't say that in the Brisa. So the Gemara Kasha, therefore, it's also a Kasha on Rav Shizvi. Omar Rava Tanya Kavaseder of Ami, we have a raya for the din of Rav Ami that said that Tumtum, even though the Nikra B'nimtza Zocha, it doesn't take double like a Bechor. Because it says in the Pasuk, Ben Veloy Tumtum. Bechor Veloy Sofek. From Ben we learn that not Tumtum, only if he's a Ben when he's born, and Bechor Veloy Sofek. So something more Bishleim, a Ben Veloy Tumtum, Kedar Rav Ami, we understand what the Bryce is coming to tell you, like Rav Ami, that no Tumtum, even the Shenikra, the din is, he doesn't get in Bechor. Ela Bechor Veloy Sofek, Lafuke Mai, why is it coming to exclude? Something more, it's coming Lafuke Mididora Shorova. What Rova Darshan Misvara, it's coming Lafuke, that means there's a Kosov. The Dora Shorova, Shtei Noshim, 2 women who are married to the same man, she all do Beis Chor, and they both had male babies, B'machbe in the hiding, and we don't know who was born first, so we don't know who is the Bechor who deserves double. Koisvim Arshah Zelezeh. They write a Arshah, meaning a letter, one from each other. Let's say it's Reuven and Shimon. We don't know who's really the Bechor. So Reuven says, if I'm the Bechor, I'm giving the rights to you, Shimon. And if Shimon is a Bechor, Shimon gives the rights to Reuven. And therefore, and then they can come to Levi and Yehuda and say, Mimon of Shach, Reuven can come, or Shimon can come and say, we deserve Bechor. Amalira popular Rava. Or Papa told Rava when he said this in the Drosha, V'hoshalach Rabin sent, and he said, Dovo Veshalti, this case I asked, L'chol Rabboisai, V'lor Mili Dovo, no one gave me an answer about it, Baram, but, Kach Omru Mishum Yanai, this is what it said in the name of Yanai, that there is a difference. Ukru L'basoif Nis'aravu, let's say we knew that Reuven is a Bechor, and we knew that Shimon is second, but afterwards we got mixed up between Reuven and Shimon, well, we couldn't remember who was the Bechor. Then Koisim Arshah Zelazeh, because there was one of them at one point who was for sure the Bechor. But Loi Ukru, if we never ever knew who was born first, in Koisim Arshah Zelazeh, you can't write Arshah one to each other. So Oda Uki Rava Amoira Ale. So Rava put Amoira, we call Amoraim all the people after the Mishnah who wrote the Gemara. But in those days, the Amora was someone who would give over the drosha. So he put someone to say over the drosha, and the Dorash, and he said the drosha, Dvorim Shomarti Lochem, that I said that even if that there's no difference if Ukru L'basoiv Nisarvu or Nisarvu at the beginning Tolsen Biodi. It's a mistake. Baram Koch Omru Mishum Rav Yanai. This is what he said in the name of Rav Yanai, that Ukru L'basoiv Nisarvu Koisim Arshal Zelazeh. Lo Ukru and Koisim Arshal Zelazeh. So we're saying now that Rav agreed to Rav Yanai said, and what we said before in the Brisa, Bechor ben veloy tumtum bechor veloy sofek. So ben veloy tumtum, that tumtum doesn't have a din bechor. Bechor veloy sofek, that if he's a sofek bechor from when he was born, even though the lechor lefi the logic, you could say they could write Ashar one to each other. Why not? Kamashmal on the posset. In such a case, you can't write Ashar one to each other, and that's the chiddush of bechor veloy sofek. Said the Gemara, Sholchu leibnei Akra de Agma leShmuel. The people from Akra de Agma was a place on a lake. They asked the Shmuel, Lamdeinu Rabbeinu, what's the din if oyu muchzokim b'zeshu bechor? We have a chazok, and the Rashbam explains that it wasn't Eidim. It's Koil be'alma that he's a bechor v'ama aviv, and the father comes and says that Acher and someone else bechoru on a different brother. Ma, what's the din? Sholach lahu, he sent to them back. The din is Koisim Marshal, these two kids, one we have a chazaka that is a bechor, and the other one the father said is bechor. They could give each other the power of bechora. And Koisim Marshal velazeh said the Gemara Kuf Chof Zayin Amud Beis. And therefore, and then they could come to the other brothers and split the bechora between them. On that the Gemara asks Mon of Shoch. Ikar Rabbanon Svirule, we could see in a second that it's a machlokes Rabbanon Rav Yehuda. So if he holds like Rabbanon lishlech lo Rabbanon, he should say the halachos like Rabbanon. Ikar Rav Yehuda Svirule lishlech lo Rav Yehuda. So why did he say that they should do Ashar one to each other? Because one of them holds that we go after the muchzik, one of them holds we go after the father. So why did Shmuel not say like Rabbanon, like Rav Yehuda? So the Gemara misapkele, Shmuel had the suffix Ikar Rav Yehuda, Ikar Rabbanon. How do we pass like Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbanon? And since it was a suffix, his solution was to do our Shah. Said the Gemara, Mahi, what's the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanon? The Tanya we learned in the Brayse, it said in the pasuk Yakir, it's coming to tell us, says Rabbi Yehuda, Yakirenu la'acherim, that the father has a right in case where we don't know whether there's a chazaka about one son that is a bechor, to say no, the other one is a bechor, he's a bechor. Mikan Omar Rav Yehuda, from here Rav Yehuda says, Ne'eman Adam lo yimazeh beni bechor. He's believed to say this one is a bechor. Ukeshem shene'eman Adam lo yimazeh beni bechor. Like a person's believed to say about his son that is a bechor, kach ne'eman Adam lo yimar, he's also ne'eman to say about his son, they're ben gerusha, but then ben chalutza, and therefore they chalolim. The chachomim orimim. They don't agree with this drasha. They say, Eino ne'eman, a father's not ne'eman about his son against the chazaka, and we go after the chazaka. Omalei Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Rava, Rav Nachman, the son of Rav Yitzchak, asked Rava, Bishleim Rav Yehuda. So wait, 1 second before that. So that's what we asked before. Why didn't Shmuel paskin or like Rabbanon that we go after Chazaka, or like Rav Yehuda that we believe the father? And the Gemara answered them that the Shmuel had the sofek who we paskin, and therefore came with the solution of our Shah. Now the Gemara asked that Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak asked Rava, Bishleim Rav Yehuda. We understand Aymed Chsiv Yakir. That's a chiddush of Yakir that the fathers believed against the Chazaka. What do we need it? If no one knows who's a bechor, very good. Obviously we believe the father. If it's against Chazak or Rabbanon, don't agree with that drasha. So what's the chiddush of Yakir? Said the Gemara, Betara Chikera. We need to know who's who when we don't know who. Said the Gemara, L'mayil Chesa, L'meis V'loi Pishnahim. What's the chiddush? To give him double? A person always has a migu to give one of his sons double because he could always give it to him as a present. Since he has a migu, since I could give my money to my bechor now or to any of my kids now as much money as I want, so believe me that he's a bechor. So what's the chiddush to say that he's believed? So the Gemara, lo tzricha benechosim shenoflu lo la'achar mikan. I'll tell you why Rabbanon need the chiddush. Let's say the father owns $1 million, and he says about this son he's a bechor, so he's believed because amigo he could give the whole $1 million to the son, so for sure he's believed to say that he's a bechor to get double. But for the nechosim that come later that he doesn't own now, let's say in a month's time he's going to make another $1 million. On that it's tova shaloi bala oilo. So on that he doesn't have a migu that he could give him the money now. So he shouldn't be believed. Kumash Malon Yakir, they have the right, it's not only Midin Migu, he has a right to say this one is a Bechor, and he gets even for the money that he gets later, he'll get in Bechor. Said the Gemara, what's the Chiddush? Even now he could say this Migu, because he could give it already now the $1 million that he gets in the future, because and Rashbam explains why Chechomim over here is a Rameh. Yakir lomoli, why do we need it? So the Gemara ben nechosim shenoflu lo yikishu goyses, that maybe no, the chiddush of Yakir is talking about in a case where someone says about his son like the Bechor, and we believe in even for the chosim that he gets when he's already nearly dead, his goises, he's a second before death, and when a person's a second before death, he doesn't have the power to give it over, he can't speak, he can't do anything. So when did Rameh say, or something that when it's Bol Olam, he could give it over, but here when it's only Bol Olam, when he's goises and he can't give it over, there's no din of makne dova shaloi bal olam, and that's a chiddush of Yakir. In such a case, you need a chiddush of Yakir, that since we know he's a Bechor, the Torah is mechadish, how we believe the father is the Bechor, not only because of the Migu, and therefore even nechosim shenafloi lo lachar ken, we believe him, and he gets. Tonu Rabbanon learned, oyu muchzokim bo yishu Bechor, we have a chazaka that this person is a Bechor, v'ama aviv al acher, on someone else shu Bechor. Ne'emon, we believe the father. Bechor, that's like Rabbi Yehuda. We know that this son is not Bechor, we have such a chazaka, he's not believed. That's Rabbanon. That we don't believe the father against chazaka. On that the Gemara asked, said the Gemara, Benichusa, Reisha Rabbi Yehuda, the Sefer Rabbanon, the Reisha of this price is Rabbi Yehuda, and the Sefer is Rabbanon, because otherwise it's a stira. Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Omar Benihu, if someone said about this a certain person, this is my son, the Chazal Ba'oma, and later on in a different time, he says, Avdihu is my slave. Ein Nemon. We don't believe him. Once he said he's the son, we don't believe him that it's a slave. But if he said the opposite, Avdihu, he said about a person that is a slave, the Chazal Ba'oma knew, and in a later date he said, this is my son. Nemon, we believe him, and he'll get Yerusha, and he has his din like a son. So why? The Mishamesh Li Ka'avda Ka'oma, when he said at the beginning, he's my slave, all he meant is that he treats me so nice, he's as if my slave. But afterwards when he said he's my son, he really meant he's my son, and therefore he's believed to say he's my son. But in the opposite case, where he first said that he's my son and then he's a slave, a person doesn't say about a slave that he's a son. Even though he loves him very much, a person won't say that. And therefore once he said he's a slave, once he said he's a son, we believe him, and he can't change what he said. Kevin she'igid shuv ein choyve umagid. Said the more b'chilufe, and it's opposite. Beis hameches, if the story happened when they went through custom. Let's see what the case. Oy al Beis hameches, he was going in the customs, and if you have a slave, you need to pay customs. V'omar benihu, and he said, this is my son. And after they left the custom houses, he said, Avdihu is my slave. So we said before in the case, once he said he's my son, you can't believe anymore that he's a slave. In this case, he's believed because he wants to save taxes. But if he said, Omar Avdihu, because why should a person say about his son that he's a slave in Beis HaMeches? He only loses. So it must be that he's really his slave. So the Gemara Meisive, I have a kash on Rabbi Yochanan. It says, if this person was treating someone else like his father, and then the father comes and says, Bnihu, it's my son. And afterwards he said, he's my Eved. So we said before the din is that he's believed. He's not believed. So that fits in very good like Rabbi Yochanan, but the Sefer doesn't fit in, because it says, he was treating him like a slave. And he said, it's my slave. And afterwards he says, it's my son. And we said before that in such a case is believed, because the reason why he said he was a slave at the beginning only meant to say he's treating me so nicely like a slave. He takes so much good care of me. And here we're saying that he's not believed. Over there it's talking about where he's not believed. Once he said, Rabbi Yochanan said that person says he's a slave and afterwards he's a son, he's believed. Because he said just a slave, and he meant to say he's treating me like a slave. But here it's talking about the Brisa where he's not believed after he said he's a slave. It's talking about where he said that he's a slave that's worth 100. Let's see, my Meitza more, what does that mean? Meitza avda kuf zuzi means to say he's such a good slave that I could sell him in a second for 100 zuz. So if you say that, you never say that about your son, he's a slave that I could sell him for 100 zuz. You might say a slave, but you're not going to say he's worth so and so much money. So if he said that, like in the Brisa, that's when he's not believed afterwards to say, he's my son. This week's Parshas Noach, and Parshas Noach, we call him Noach a Tzaddik. There's only two people in the Torah we call a Tzaddik, Noach and Yosef. What's comparable about those two, if I'm not mistaken, it's a medrash, it's that they both supplied the whole world with food. Noach in the Teva, the whole world who existed supplied them for food. And Yosef in Mitzrayim in the famine years, we could see from here that, in our imagination, who's a tzaddik, the biggest Talmid Chacham? No, a tzaddik is someone who takes care of the food of everyone, even of the animals. You see a bird and a cat, a dog that's hungry, and you give it food, you're a tzaddik. We should all be zoicha to be big tzaddikim and see Yeshuas very soon. Shabbos.